A new rumor claims that the decision to retcon and then gaslight Warhammer 40K hobbyists and enthusiasts was done to appease Amazon for their upcoming Warhammer 40K movie or television series that is being run by Henry Cavill. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. This is over at thatparkplace.com. I wrote this up earlier today, and this new rumor comes from 4chan. But just in case you're not caught up on what exactly is going on with Warhammer 40K, they are releasing an Adeptus Custodes Codex on April 27th. And in that codex, there are some excerpts that reveal that they have created female Adeptus Custodes. This was a faction that was all male. There's lore going back to 1987 that shows that they were all male, that they were the sons of noble families, that the Imperium recruited to be the royal guard, basically, of the emperor. They are the elite of the elite. So here are some of the excerpts. You can see this. I'll have this linked in the description below, showing that they have a new female Adeptus Custodes. Her name is Kaladice Torvalia Kesh. And we had the official Warhammer account post this on X, writing, since the first of the 10,000 were created, there have always been female Custodes. So not only are they adding female Custodes, but now we have the official Warhammer account on social media gaslighting hobbyist enthusiasts, saying that there have always been female Custodes when that clearly was not the case. So with that context out of the way, let's get into this rumor here. This came from an anonymous poster on 4chan. Screenshot's a little bit hard to read, so I'll just read the transcription here. Female Custodes are only going to be mentioned in the codex. No new sculpts or characters after the fact. Social media department jumped the gun and tried to put out fires with the wrong hose. Intent is to push female Custodes character in Amazon show without it breaking lore, because Amazon executives wanted a woman in power armor and wouldn't settle for Sisters of Battle. People involved in the show are pissed because they've been moving ahead on Eisenhorn. Talks of inserting said female Custodes into Eisenhorn's story, with Cavill threatening to walk away from the project. Small stock drop today, but Games Workshop figures it can ride it out if it stays mum on the subject. They really need better social media employees. And then it says Cavill will be in an article due to, quote, heading to Games Workshop to work on the new series this week or next. The leaker added, if he leaves, it'll be a noticeable hit to the share price, meaning the show is dead. Good ending, or Amazon is calling the shots. Bad ending. Not Black Chagorians, but similar scenario. You can trust me. My dad works at Nintendo. So obviously that last line kind of throws the whole rumor into suspect, right? I mean, obviously this is indeed a rumor. We're not sure exactly if this person is telling the truth. It's on 4chan. It's anonymous. They don't provide any details on the veracity of their rumor. This isn't someone that has a track record that we can look at, that's gotten things right in the past. This is clearly just an anonymous person posting on 4chan claiming this is indeed what is happening, and then saying, you can trust me. My dad works at Nintendo, which I don't think has anything to do with Amazon or Games Workshop, at least as far as I know. There were also some responses to other people in the thread that appear to be made by this same original poster. They basically said nothing was inked when Cavill announced it, and it sent everyone at Games Workshop into a panic. That actually, whether or not Games Workshop was sent into a panic, it's unclear, but we do know that it did seem that Cavill did announce the project before it was officially greenlit. We got the official greenlighting earlier this year, and Cavill had announced it back in 2023. So that part is accurate. Shareholders put an immediate stop to any work until the contract was hammered out, and negotiations were brutal. If it could impact profits on the minis, Games Workshop didn't want to touch it, which is why this Custodes thing was a dumpster fire. People who should have known about it didn't, and success or not, people are going to be let go. So claiming that people are going to be let go at Games Workshop for what's going on with this retcon of the female Adeptus Custodes and the subsequent gaslighting. The leaker also made it clear the move to include female Adeptus Custodes had everything to do with the show, and that Amazon did not want Sisters of Silence because they do not speak, and that the Sisters of a Battle are apparently too religious, and Amazon thinks it'll be a turnoff. Furthermore, the leaker said the female Inquisitor in power armor was the last hope, but Amazon wants to be able to take the character out of the armor and still have them to be powerful. It's all been a massive headache. And then in another post, again, we assume that this is the same, the original poster here. The poster said it was going to happen during the scene, like providing some details on how the character would be introduced, I guess, in the adaptation of this alleged adaptation of Eisenhorn that Games Workshop is supposedly working on. I don't think that's been confirmed yet. I don't know if we have any confirmation on what storylines that they're going to do. I think Henry's been punting on all of the interviews he was doing leading up to that. So I don't think he's actually talked about what exact storyline they are going to do, or if they've even made a decision on that. But this is what the leaker said. It was going to happen during the scene where Eisenhorn gets debriefed by the Space Marines, a very quick reveal, maybe 1 or 2 lines, and then never mentioned again. The story is going to be told in the past tense recollection format, so they could so they could have the scene happen at the start of the story. It was going to be the big progressivism smash hit to generate press. That's why it's only going to be in the codex. So when it happened, they could say it's lore accurate. It was in official publications when said press happened. So I'm not sure how much I believe this. I would not be surprised if Amazon was potentially trying to get Games Workshop to introduce some kind of powerful female character that they could put into into an Adeptus Astartes or an Adeptus Custodes suit. I would not be surprised if that's the case. We do know that Amazon does indeed push a lot of this stuff through their inclusion and policy playbook, which they announced back in June 2021. This is what the press release said for that. These guides offer detailed and actionable recommendations as Amazon Studios continues to seek out stories and storytelling that amplify voices across race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, age, religion, disability, body size, gender identity, and gender expression for the global Prime Video audience. The company's executive head of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Latasha Gillespie, explained the purpose of these the inclusion and policy playbook at the time, saying Amazon Studios has long prioritized telling innovative and inclusive stories from a diverse range of creative talent, delighting our global audiences. I'm not sure if that's the case, especially when you look at Wheel of Time and Rings of Power. We wanted to move beyond good intentions to creating mechanisms that hold us accountable to a high bar. This inclusion policy and inclusion playbook adds important additional depth and guidance for our internal teams and external partners, which Games Workshop would be, to ensure we continue to advance our shared mission of amplifying the best creatives and content around the world. Head of Amazon Studios, Jennifer Sulky, also said, with the establishment of our inclusion policy and inclusion playbook, Amazon Studios has committed itself to being a thought and action leader in the transformation of our industry. So there you go. Transformation of our industry. This doesn't get any clearer than that, right? We know how much work there is to be done to improve representation both on camera and behind the scenes, and it starts at home with us. With clear directives and a commitment to accountability, these guides provide a path toward a more equitable future, both on and off camera. As part of the press release, Amazon Studios made it clear what their goals were with the policy and playbook. Each film or series with a creative team of 3 or more people in above-the-line roles, directors, writers, producers, should ideally include a minimum 30% women and 30% members of an underrepresented racial ethnic group. So they have quotas there that I will see if those get challenged in court. I think America First is filed an EOC complaint in the run-up to a potential lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company for similar quotas as part of their Reimagine Tomorrow program and the casting quotas that they have. Looks like this is something, Amazon has something similar here, obviously. And they say this aspirational goal will increase to 50% by 2024. That's this year. That's Games Workshop. That's Warhammer, 50% with Amazon there. Casting actors whose identity, gender identity, nationality, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability aligns with the character they will be playing. So you can only basically encouraging people to only cast certain ethnicity, sexual orientations based on that character. We've seen that throughout Hollywood. That's pretty much what they do now. They're even doing that with voice actors now. It's kind of wild how much this representation agenda has just kind of taken a stranglehold on the industry. And it looks like it's because they have a lot of these policies that are soon to be challenged in the court of law. And we'll see what happens if they will pass muster or not. Another bullet point here says aiming to include one character from each of the following categories in speaking roles, with minimum 50% of these to be women, LGBTQIA+, person with a disability, and 3 regionally underrepresented race, ethnic, cultural groups. A single character can fulfill one or more of these identities. So they want women in all of their shows or movies. 50% of these to be women. Seeking at least 3 bids from vendors or suppliers on productions, one of which must be from a woman-owned business and one from a minority-owned business. So this doesn't even have anything to do with the production. It's the vendors or suppliers on the production. They're requiring quotas for the contractors they work with. Pay equity across casting, behind the camera staff and crew, and for vendors and suppliers. The company noted they would be grading each production based on their policy and the playbook. It says Amazon Studios will provide a report template for each production to indicate whether these expectations were met, that will be submitted within 1 month of the completion of principal photography. Furthermore, the press release shared through the setting of goals and tracking of adherence to these policies, Amazon Studios expands its commitment to increasing representation on camera and behind the scenes, contributing to efforts to move the industry forward to a more inclusive future. And then we have this also from the press release. The inclusion playbook puts in place intentional practices to minimize and disrupt biases, providing specific guidance that will help everyone within and working with Amazon Studios to meet the expectations set in the inclusion policy. The playbook provides direction on how to make inclusive decisions while telling authentic stories and hiring the best people for the job. That's kind of a contradiction there, right? We're going to make inclusive decisions while telling authentic stories. I don't think so. That's not how that works. They're clearly inauthentic if you're having to force inclusive decisions. Knowledge of where to go for help, including tools to make inclusive decisions, tools to identify criteria for making creative choices, leading to balanced, consistent, and informed decisions, and ways to foster curiosity and ask questions to disrupt the status quo about how things are done. And then it also revealed the policy and playbook were created with radical activists. It says here, Amazon Studios worked closely with Dr. Stacy Smith and Dr. Catherine Piper of USC's Annenberg Inclusion Initiative, and with Brenda Robinson of the International Documentary Association and Game Changer Films on the creation of the policy and playbook. The studio also consulted with leading organizations devoted to advancing the visibility and responsible depictions of underrepresented or marginalized people, including GLAAD, Illuminative Think Tank for Inclusion and Equity, and the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund. All of those are just absolutely insane radical activists that are trying to push agendas, reshape society in a very, very evil way. Following that, remember that was back in 2021. We recently got an entire expose by Film Threat's Chris Gore. Did a really good breakdown of all of this stuff, looking at their actual the inclusion policy and playbooks website, which is called Customer and Content Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Accessibility. And in that, on that website, it says this is what the policy says. We work to consistently delight all segments of our audience. We aim to do this in 2 ways. First, by seeking out stories that amplify the voices of characters across race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, age, religion, disability, including mental health, body size, gender, gender identity, and gender expression. So that is their number 1 priority when they're seeking out stories. So if that's their number 1 priority for Amazon when they're seeking out stories, it's very, I think, clear that they would try and inject that into Warhammer 40K, into this movie or television series, combination of both that Henry Cavill is shepherding. And then second, by bringing these often underrepresented or misrepresented characters to life in an inclusive production environment. So that is their second priority. It's all about representation. It's all about the woke ideology. It's all about pushing that stuff. This is from Amazon, remember. One section of the playbook labeled script-based descriptions and stereotypes questions providing descriptions of characters. Is there a reason to specify a character's gender, race, ethnicity, LGBTQ+ identity, or disability in the script? Does source material specify a character's identity in any way? Are you deviating from that depiction? Why or why not? It also asks, are there places where you should specify information about the character's background or identity, gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender expression, or disability to help with casting? Consider sharing this information only if it is needed for the story. So remember, they want you to cast people that cast characters that cast actors that have the same traits as the characters. So if they want you to specify this, that is for casting purposes. That's why. There's another section labeled stereotypes and humor in it, and it questions, ask the fundamental question, are you the right person to tell this story and or these jokes? So obviously, if you don't look a certain way, if you don't behave a certain way, if you claim to be a certain way, you might not be you might not be the proper person to tell a certain story or a joke, right? Just utterly ridiculous. Begin by thinking about whether, as a storyteller, your humor comes from outside or inside the group at the center of the comedy. Not sure what that has to do with anything. It doesn't. Outgroup members using humor to mock or joke about characters from underrepresented groups can be highly problematic. You can say the same thing in the reverse, right? Humor may reflect insensitivity, play to broad stereotypes, and reinforce historical tropes for members of underrepresented groups. Creators might try to challenge or spotlight stereotypes that have been oppressive. In other words, the comedy stems from good intentions, but content lacks authenticity when it doesn't come from or take into account the perspectives of the in-group members at the core of the stereotype or context. I mean, just absolutely absurd stuff here from Amazon that Chris Gore highlighted. In another section labeled race and ethnicity, it states, including creative voices from the community is the best and most precise way to avoid stereotyping, but all people are prone to stereotypes and bias. Below are questions to ask as speed bumps in the storytelling process to avoid common stereotypes. It then has a list of questions for Black, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, and Native characters. As an example, here are the questions for Black characters. Are they shown in connection to violence, either as perpetrators or victims, particularly gang violence? Are they linked to storylines that focus on drugs and addiction or sexual promiscuity? Are they shown as a member of a family unit in ways that do not center on broken homes, single parents, or other aspects of family life that foreground difficulty rather than joy? That's something that Sweet Baby Inc. CEO Kim Belair was always talking about, wanted to show joy rather than showing any kind of trial or difficulty. Are they presented in positions that are linked to entertaining others? Overall, in your story, are they primarily dealing with hardships and difficulties that are linked to their race, ethnicity, rather than to the plot? Ironically, when it comes to casting, the policy portion of the document claims this: the story comes first. The inclusion policy recommends casting characters from all backgrounds as long as it does not compromise the authenticity of the narrative, which they did in Wheel of Time. So they clearly just don't even follow these instructions whatsoever. For example, when a movie or series focuses on a particular racial ethnic group or is set in a homogenous context or location, like the Two Rivers in the Wheel of Time, it will be exempted from the requirements to diversify casting. That's not what they did. They completely did not do that. So this is all just a bunch of lies too here. Amazon Studios is committed to authentic portrayals. It is our intention whenever possible to cast actors in a role whose identity aligns with the identity of the character they will be playing. That's absolutely not true. You see that all over the Wheel of Time. You see that in the Rings of Power. They say this, but it's just not true. It's absolutely lying. We have evidence that shows that that's not true. There's clear depictions of what elves look like in Tolkien's Legendarium. There's clear depictions of what the characters in the Wheel of Time look like as well, that they chose to completely ignore when it came to the casting. I mean, they didn't even just ignore the casting. They literally ignored characters' backgrounds and their backstories. They have Perrin murdering a wife that he never actually had in the opening episode of the show. Maybe not murdering. Maybe murdering isn't the right word, but he kills her. And then to show you the hypocrisy of this, right? So it's story comes first. If you got to match the source material, but then it goes on to show that they have quotas. To reduce invisibility in entertainment and where the story allows, we aim to include one character from each of the following categories for speaking roles of any size, and at minimum 50% of the total of these should be women: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or gender nonconforming, non-binary, person with a disability, and 3 regionally underrepresented racial, ethnic, cultural groups. A single character can fulfill one or more of these identities. Again, that was kind of, we saw that in the press release back in 2021. So that is what Amazon is doing. They're clearly super woke. They have woke quotas. They can do woke casting. They all are all about woke storytelling. So I don't think it's unheard of. What this rumor is claiming, that it was influenced by Amazon and the upcoming show or movies or shared universe that Games Workshop has signed on to do with Prime Video that's being helmed by Henry Cavill. I don't think that that is out of the ballpark. I think that's very well within the ballpark. Again, we've seen what they've done to Wheel of Time. We've seen what they've done to the Rings of Power. Obviously, those being the two biggest examples. So it wouldn't be unheard of that they would do the same thing to Warhammer with including this female Custodes. What is interesting is that Warhammer actually added it into the codex beforehand. And I think that kind of lends the validity to the rumor claiming that they were trying to hush that up. And then when the actual announcement was made for the television show, they could point, oh, well, we had them. We introduced them back here. Well, that strategy clearly isn't working. Warhammer enthusiasts and hobbies found that out very quickly. But so I do think there's some validity to this rumor. Whether or not the rumor itself is true, I think some of the assertions that it makes are possible and well within the realm of possibility. I probably think the rumor in general is not true, given the fact that they say you could trust me. My dad works at Nintendo. I just kind of think that's like a huge tell that that's completely fake. But the idea that Amazon is probably influencing the decisions that Games Workshop is making, I think that's probably accurate. We've seen this time and time again. I think Disney has done this with Percy Jackson. Rick Riordan obviously bought into the whole woke ideology, bought into race changing his characters, woke casting, woke quotas, etc. So we've seen this happen before. It's a repeated pattern. I don't think you need a rumor to kind of make that connection, because I do think that we have seen so much evidence of this before, not just with Amazon, but with other production companies and studios as well. But let me know what you guys make of this rumor. Do you think that the rumor is accurate? Do you think there are some actual possibilities of truth hidden within it if it's not accurate? But let me know what you guys make in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.